Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this national media and blogger availability with utility executives. My name is Tom Gray. I'm Director of Communications for the American Wind Energy Association. And I'd like to introduce our participants. We have Mr. Paul Bonavia. He's President Utilities Group for Xcel Energy. Mr. Yaqut Mansour, President and CEO of the California Independent System Operator. Jan Shorey, General Manager of the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. Randall Swisher, Executive Director of the American Wind Energy Association. Mr. Pat Wood, Chairman of Electricity. And Mr. Stephen Wright, Administrator of the Bonneville Power Administration.
For those of you who don't know, Bonneville is a federal power market industry and an agency in the Pacific Northwest, part of the Department of Energy. We market about 40% of the available electricity supplies in the Northwest and 75% of the high voltage transmission in that region. We have an explosion of wind power going on in our system. Starting in 2002, the amounts of wind in our system have doubled just about every year. We're up to about 700 megawatts now, and we expect to add additional 700 megawatts this year. That is creating a set of issues for us as we move wind from being a pilot program to a real resource that we have to deal with. And our challenge has been to try to address those issues of how you integrate that much wind in with your existing system. We put together a group of folks this last year of utilities, regulators, wind power developers, and the environmental community to try to address some of the significant concerns. And I think the part that we feel really good about is that we finished a report in about 6 months with 16 recommendations, unanimous agreement of all the parties that in fact these are the right set of actions that need to be addressed. And we're now in the phase of moving forward with implementing that action plan. I think the key thought that I'd leave with you is that we are moving wind from being a marginal resource to a mainstream resource, that there are a number of very difficult technical issues that have to be addressed in order to be able to make it work. And fundamentally the challenges are associated with both reliability and cost. Our customers want the lights to come on when they flip the switch, and they want the cost to be as low as possible. We think these are solvable problems, but they are issues that we do have to really put our shoulder to the wheel to make sure that we understand. With the progress that we've made in the last 6 months, we think we're on the right path to be able to solve those problems, and looking forward to the potential for more wind power in our system as we move forward.
Pat Wood, Chairman of the North American Advisory Board for Electricity. I was also a former state and federal regulator of energy and kind of the godfather of the Texas RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard Program, and worked a lot with these good folks on this panel here, so I was delighted when Randy and Rob Graham called and asked me to moderate the panel for these folks that are doing a lot. And I guess my remarks that I said today and want to repeat here today with you all is that this is really kind of a pretty big change. I mean, what has happened and what this panel being really the keynote area of our program this week represents is that utilities have, and these were the front leaders of them, I should say, that there were over 42 utilities here at this conference, which is the highest number we've ever had. And the continued increase in wind power in the U.S. is dependent on more and more of these utilities understanding and adopting strategies that will integrate wind power into their systems. And so we did spend some time today talking about some of the specific challenges that these large and small system operators have in their various regions of the country in dealing with wind. And I think the conclusion was, and certainly one I've seen borne out in Texas as a lot of wind has gotten integrated onto that grid, is that the fears were relatively unfounded. They're not to be ignored. Wind is an intermittent resource, but we've dealt with intermittent resources before. And we did really get some good discussion on the record here today from the different utilities, all of whom have done a lot in the way of not just talking it, but doing detailed, quantified studies about what is the impact of wind being integrated into the system. So really making wind as comfortable a part of the utility resource portfolios as nuclear and coal and natural gas and hydro have been for the last 80 years. We're here. We're finally at that great moment when we didn't ever think, certainly I didn't think, 10 years ago when the governor said we like wind, I didn't even think about integration programs and all that kind of stuff. It was like, okay, great, it's a policy issue, but it's an operational issue today, and that is a big sign of maturity for this industry.
I'd like to thank Pat Wood and our four speakers for a wonderful session. I think it exemplifies the change in the relationship between the wind industry and the electric utility industry over the last decade. A decade ago, it was primarily an adversarial relationship. And today, I think what you saw in front of you really exemplifies a business relationship in which value must be found on all sides, but in particular for the electric utility customer. We have all kinds of examples of issues that the American Wind Energy Association represents every link in the wind value chain. But no link in that chain is more important than the electric utility as the ultimate customer. And AWEA is committed to working with the electric utility industry. Jeff Anthony, who just joined the organization this year, is our leader on this. But reaching out to utilities to provide information, whether as customers, as partners, or as owners. There are two key strategic issues that we are collaborating with the utility industry on that are going to be essential to achieving the wind vision of 20% wind by 2030. One is transmission, and whether it is making better use of the existing grid, as we are partnering with Bonneville to achieve, whether it is surgical transmission upgrades, as we are working with CalISO at Tehachapi, or whether it is the kind of national map of a backbone transmission system that American Electric Power has developed, through which 200 to 400 gigawatts of additional energy can be added to the nation's energy mix by 2030. These are all examples of the agenda that we need to work on and partner with the utility industry in the decades to come. The other key strategic challenge is integrating large amounts of wind energy, variable wind energy, into the transmission system. And there are all kinds, again, of examples of ways in which we can do that. Paul Bonavia mentioned consolidating control areas. Yaqut Mansour's organization, the CalISO, is an example of large regional electric markets that are a key way in which to do that. And in the Northwest, Bonneville has been leading the way to a virtual regional market for electricity that has the ability to absorb more of wind's variability.
Yes, good morning. For those of you who may not be familiar with SMUD, we're a municipally owned electric utility. We're a standalone special district governed by an elected board of directors, and we serve Sacramento County and a little bit of Placer County here in California. So we're a retail electric provider. We have about 1,400,000 people living in our service area, and we own generation, we own some transmission, we also obviously sell electricity at retail. In terms of my the points that I made during my presentation today, I talked a little bit about the project that SMUD has. We do have an excellent site in Solano County near Rio Vista that we expect will have the generation capability in excess of 200 megawatts. We have about 39 megawatts operating now. We're in construction so that we'll be over 100 megawatts by the end of the year. And the big news for us is that we ended up putting in the Vestas 3 megawatt turbines, so they're the largest one in the West. If anybody wants to come see them, they're quite spectacular compared to some of the smaller ones that we started with back in the early 1990s. But as I said, our goal as set by our board of directors is to be 23% renewable by 2011. We get that with the 20% renewable portfolio standard as part of our overall energy mix for all customers, and then an additional 3% for customers who want 100% green power. And so building this green resource for us is a key component of getting to that. In terms of the points that I made, you've heard already a little bit about some of the discussion on integration of wind into the system. We're a relatively small control area, or balancing authority as the current terminology goes. So we're in the middle of doing an integration study to figure out what the expected impacts on our system will be if and when we're successful getting all the way over 200 megawatts.